Good morning. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Fire Commissioners. Actually, it's not regularly scheduled. It's a special meeting, sorry. So it's Monday, December 9th, 2019, and it's 9 a.m. Roll call.
Let the record reflect Commissioners Ybarra, Glazier, Inberg, Hada are present, and we have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. Flag salute, moment of silence.
Please join me in a moment of silence to honor past and present members of the Los Angeles Fire Department who devote their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
So let's begin with Commissioner comments.
I can go. So I attended the family orientation that we had in late November, and happy to see a number of female recruits. And on the 1st of December, at noontime, I attended the Spirit of San Pedro holiday parade with Chief Villanueva. And then later that day, I was in Hollywood for the Hollywood Christmas Parade with Chief Hoyer and his daughter Landon, and of course Armando, Chief Hogan, and the entire Y Reader family. And likewise, my wife joined me for this parade along with my granddaughter and son. And then last Thursday, I attended the badge promotion ceremony, and there were 11 Inspector 1s and 4 Inspector 2s, and I'm sure Fire Marshal Crowley was proud to see that. And once again, as always, very good events, I thought.
Great. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. It's been a little hectic around here, as you guys all know. But I was able to make the Valley Youth Fire graduation, and that was very, very inspiring. And I do want to say, it's pretty extraordinary, the work that's been done to create that pipeline. And it was illustrated by this young woman who started out, she did not want to be a firefighter. She wanted to pursue other interests, and she went to Girls Fire Camp. She became very inspired. Then she went to the Youth Fire Program. You created this pathway. And now she is, I believe she's either in the magnet program or she's in the cadet program, but she is planning on pursuing a career in the fire service. And she sang the national anthem beautifully. It was pretty extraordinary, and it was a really great illustration of what Commissioner Glazier had presented years ago, and that the recruitment division and the youth program division has executed beautifully. So I just want to say that was pretty extraordinary. Just a couple housekeeping issues. I just want the record to reflect that I haven't received the weekly reports from the independent assessor, so I'm not sure if that needs to get agendized or if that is something that can just happen.
I think we had a discussion, and we asked that you talk to the Deputy Mayor Gorell about it.
I think what we should probably do is agendize that. I don't know.
I think we should talk to Deputy Mayor Gorell.
Julie, is there any legal issue with it?
There's not a legal issue with accepting a weekly report, a one-way communication from the independent assessor, so long as none of the commissioners discuss the contents of it prior to it being agendized. But that's separate and apart from whether, from a policy standpoint.
Right, because there are communications that go both ways. So you're basically cutting off my communication with the independent assessor. You're basically asking me to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I'm happy to talk to Deputy Mayor Gorell about it with you.
Oh, so Commissioner Woods Gray had requested, I don't remember a conversation. We never had a conversation. I don't
We
believe
had
this
an email
body.
conversation.
I
We-
didn't.
I thought you were copied in it.
No.
Okay,
So-
let's have a conversation with Deputy Mayor Gorell.
Councilor, just a quick question. Would that, if there's a direct report from staff to commissioners, there can still be one-way or two-way communication between staff and a single commissioner, no?
And a single commissioner.
Yeah.
But if if a quorum of the commissioners are involved in the discussion, whether
With
together
these-
or separately,
With the staff person.
then that would be a potential Brown Act violation.
So is it,
So we should talk about it later, and I suggest that we have a communication with Deputy Mayor Gorell to get some guidance on this because it is a policy issue, and I think the mayor's office should weigh in. Thanks.
Sorry, was the conclusion then it's not going to get agendized, or what?
It's not going to get agendized. We will get guidance from the Deputy Mayor's office.
Okay. Let's see. Quick thank you to Fire Station 105's. Had a nice dinner there. We had a good conversation about lots of stuff facing the department and also just some of the local area issues out there. Great conversation around just some of the challenges associated with some of the board and care facilities in the area. I know some of these are some long-standing issues out there, and we had a good conversation about the complexities of that as a serving that group, and in some cases where there's legitimate service, other cases where it feels like they're being taken advantage, or we as a department are being taken advantage of. So I know it's been a long-standing conversation, but great visit with them. A lot of good thoughts and thoughtful conversation. Thanks.
So that concludes Commissioner comments. Report of the Fire Chief.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. On November 21st, we had Class 18-3 graduate from Drill Tower 81. We had a total of 55, with 5 females graduating. And then November 25th, as Commissioner Harris stated, we had a family orientation, very diverse class. I believe there's 14 females in that class. December 5th, we had a promotional badge presentation. We call these presentations around Christmas times Christmas lists. It's a nice little gift to our members who work so hard. It's always a great event. That afternoon, we had a holiday safety press conference where we partnered with LA County. We burned up a Christmas tree using the electrical components. It's always a good visual, and it's a reminder to the public to be careful, keep your tree watered. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. So now we have River report by the department on the significant incidents from November 19th to December 8th. So it's verbal report by the medical director?
That's all.
Great.
Good morning, Commissioners, Fire Chief Dr. Mark Eckstein, EMS Bureau Commander. Significant EMS incidents since the last meeting. Selectively chose some EMS incidents highlighting the impact of a highly trained professional force within a very effective dispatch system, despite an increase in call load. On December 7th, Engine 266 Rescue 257 responded to a traffic accident with a car into a utility pole with significant passenger space intrusion. Medical literature does not demonstrate much of an effect of paramedics on trauma patients in an urban area. This was an exception in that the paramedics recognized this 30-year-old gentleman was in severe distress with evidence of what's called a tension pneumothorax with a collapsed lung, preventing blood return to the heart. And they immediately decompressed the lung by inserting a large needle to his chest with the immediate resolution of his symptoms and correction of his hypoxia, and then he was transported to a trauma center. Timely intervention saving this young man's life. Another incident highlighted both the impact of our members and the health disparities in our community. On November 27th, Engine Rescue 66 responded on a 10-year-old male who was found unresponsive, not breathing, and cyanotic. Sadly, this 10-year-old boy in the city of Los Angeles, who was a known asthmatic, had run out of his inhaler and was near death upon arrival of firefighters and paramedics. They immediately administered a shot of adrenaline, supported his respirations, and transported him to the nearest emergency department approved for pediatrics, saving this boy's life. Very tragic that we had to respond to save his life, largely due to disparities in healthcare from a very preventable disease. But fortunately, tragedy was averted for this 10-year-old boy. On November 25th, Engine and Rescue 89 responded to a 41-year-old male reported seizure. As you may have heard me mention previous meetings, one of the things we've emphasized with the creation of our tiered dispatch system, which we've now had in place for 5 years, is to have our call takers discern the difference between a routine seizure versus someone who's in cardiac arrest who has seizure-like activity with agonal respirations. Our call taker did an excellent job and recognized this as a cardiac arrest with seizure-like activity. He provided instructions for bystander CPR, which was provided, and then both BLS and ALS response was provided, achieving return of pulses and a likely save of this 41-year-old gentleman. And finally, a final call to discuss really involves the chain of survival at every level. On November 29th, Engine 98, Rescue 91 responded to a 33-year-old male in the city of San Fernando, which of course we provide fire and EMS coverage. I had the honor of being a San Fernando Reserve police officer for about 10 years and put in AEDs in their police cars and trained their officers in CPR. And due to the fact the city is about 2 square miles, they have a very, very short response times. Prior to LAFD arrival, San Fernando PD officers had performed CPR and used their defibrillator in their squad car on this 33-year-old gentleman. They transferred care to our EMTs and paramedics who were able to restore pulses, and this 33-year-old gentleman was transported, breathing on his own with a good pulse, to the nearest STEMI receiving center. So this call highlights not only the chain of survival within our department, but also including law enforcement. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you. Moving on, do we have presentations?
No, President.
Nope. Okay, so consent agenda items.
Move to adopt the recommendations for items 4A and B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So our first regular agenda item is report by the Department on Domestic Violence Human Trafficking Action Plan.
Good morning, President Ibarra, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, Sela, Ms. Rafish. So you have before you the third quarter update for the Domestic Violence Human Trafficking Action Plan. So as you know, we do a quarterly update. And so this report specifically speaks to the actions that the department took in the third quarter of 2019. So if I could bring your attention just to the front page. So in regards to training that was implemented, basically the department is continuing its research into developing training estimated to be presented in the 2021 fiscal year. So we're in the process of basically creating a new training, so the training that members have already received, so we can provide something updated and refreshed. So that's what we're working on. We also began consultation with the city attorney's office because some of the processes that we would like to use potentially might have HIPAA issues, and so we're actually working with the city attorney's office, who actually also has the city attorneys also have a domestic violence and human trafficking coalition, if you will, and so we're now actually starting to work with them in regards to looking at ways that not only the fire department but other city entities can actually start working together, so we're not all kind of trying to accomplish the same goal in a silo. And then also the part of the training that was promoted this year and in the third quarter was the Departmental Bulletin 1904, which is identification and treatment of known or suspected domestic violence. So this is a departmental bulletin that was previously created, and then what we did was just reassign the bulletins sort of as a refresher in the interim until we can create the new training for next year. And that also goes the same for the human trafficking departmental bulletin, which was actually a new bulletin that was created this year. We didn't actually have that bulletin specific to human trafficking. And so that was also one of the forms of training that we applied to members this year. And then the last thing in the third quarter, you have weekly we track domestic violence and human trafficking reporting from our members that are out in the field as they respond to these incidences and trying to track their reporting to sort of identify how we can improve that reporting structure. So for the third quarter, we actually had 10 incidents of initially at the when this report was written, which was 60 days ago, we had 10 reported incidents of domestic violence, and since then we actually now have 13. There's been 3 more reports of domestic violence, and then we had 9 incidents of human trafficking. And so that pretty much concludes my report. If you have any questions,
So those bulletins, have we seen them in the commission?
the departmental bulletins, I
Yeah.
don't believe the departmental bulletins go through commission, but I'd be happy to provide them.
Yeah, that would be great, just as information.
Okay.
I think, don't they get sent out to the entire department?
Right. The departmental bulletins actually are created. They become actually a permanent part of our department library, and they're distributed to members in regards to, like in this example, is domestic violence and human trafficking. So they are a permanent part of the library, and they're assigned to all members to read them and review them.
No, I think it's great, and honestly, I think this is the highest number of human trafficking victims that have been identified thus far, correct?
But yeah, with the human trafficking, that is correct.
Right. So when is this? It's COSEP and OSEP training? Is
So-
it live training, or is it live training for?
Well, the training that we're developing for next year, it's anticipated to be live training, but what we want to do is create it so it can also be put on Target Solutions, so you could use both avenues. And so, yeah, that training actually would be assigned to all members. It would be an all members training.
Right, but live training for COSEP and OSEP.
Live training right now we're looking at the feasibility of actually making it live training for all members,
For all members.
but late next year.
Great, that's fantastic. Especially, I mean, I think we saw a 25% drop in undocumented residents reporting sexual assault and domestic violence. So I think that this is, and especially with a lot of the human trafficking, I think it's really very imperative, and I really greatly appreciate your work.
Right, no, absolutely. I mean, we've seen obviously just the idea of raising people's awareness really was the key to actually getting people to actually report and just being aware of it.
Right, and you guys, I mean, LAFD has access that I remember taking the course, and LAFD has access that PD would never have, just because there's no threat, But I do know that there are people that are not necessarily, they're apprehensive about talking to anybody in uniform now
Yeah, absolutely.
in this current environment. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for
wait,
the report.
happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chief.
Okay.
Okay. Move to adopt the recommendation in this item. It's item 5A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So next we have the report by the Department on Regulation Number 4, Program Report.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Madam President, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, Ms. Rafish, Acela. My name is Chad Richardson. I'm currently assigned to the legal unit as the commander within the Fire Prevention Bureau. Today I'm presenting on the response to the Reg 4 program at the request of the Fire Commission. Shortly after assigned to the legal unit, it was expressed that the Reg 4 program rests in my lap, and it quickly became apparent that the current program as we know it was in need of some attention. Over the last year, I've been getting my hands around the program and have developed 7 different elements that I've categorized it into, and you can see that on page 2 of your report. This includes testers, testing process, fee structure, certification, compliance, enforcement, and finally quality control. This report is an overview of the project plan that I've begun to draft. Also during this time, I've been busy building relationships with all the parties involved with our program, from internal, which includes inspectors, captains, chiefs, civilians, and external partners, which include building owners, property managers, Local 709, BOMA, Fire Life Safety Association, expanding our relationship with Brycer, and other testers like LAUSD and GSD. Some of them are actually here present today to support this program. It was easy to find that there was frustration and concerns for the program from all those involved. At the same time, the common theme was that everyone appreciates the fact that we have a program that holds everyone to a higher standard, but it can stand for some much needed improvement to become state-of-the-art and one of the most sought-after programs in the country. This board report was generated after the question arose regarding the cost of the fee structure for testers. To answer that question, I will give you the short answer, which is the fee is $1,524, which is based on 6 hours of our inspector's hourly rate currently at $254 per hour, and that was adopted March 13th, 2019, where City Council adopted as the latest fee structure. 6 hours is based on the time it takes for our inspector to process an individual tester from beginning to end of certification. Outside testers pay this fee when applying to become certified as an individual tester with us, which allows them the opportunity to take a written test on a manual and one system test. Each additional test is $1,524. If they fail this test at any point, they need to pay 50% as long as they do it within 30 days. And then when the renewal time comes, it's $762 per system, as long as they complete that prior to expiration date. This is explained further on page 3 and 4 of your report. Certifications are tracked with an outdated internal program that is in need of updating and does not allow us the opportunity to track multiple expiration dates. Therefore, when it's time to renew a system added after the initial anniversary date, the tester is responsible to come up with a renewal fee for all systems they are certified to test. All of the nearly 80,000 systems are tracked by a third-party vendor known as the Compliance Engine, which is hosted by Brycer. That's where the testers upload their test reports for a nominal fee of approximately $12 per system. Compliance and enforcement comes from the legal unit, which includes a hearing process and, when needed, a criminal case filing with the city attorney's office. The quality control for our program is limited at best due to the minimal staffing and tremendous workload for those members that are working tirelessly to keep the program afloat. Our recommendation is to enhance the Reg 4 program, include short-term, mid-range, and long-term goals. Page 5 and 6 of your report go into the details within each of those 7 elements that I mentioned earlier, but for time's sake, I'll just quickly review the goals of the restructure. Short-term, also known as Phase 1 in the project plan, is develop a working group to include stakeholders within the industry with LAFD members, testers, building owners, property managers, just to name a few. Draft an ordinance for the restructure of the Reg 4 program and introduce and define a pass-through fee structure similar to surrounding areas that are currently utilizing this type of fee structure. Revamp our testing program. Our goal is to increase our testers by 25%. Condense the number of tests and categories that we have. Research outside testing applications and or companies that develop an unbiased and secure process for testing, and create a test cadre. Revise the fee structure for the certification to match similar types of certifications or licensee programs, i.e. C16 license or AES certificate, or that of like a paramedic license. Initiate tracking of certifications within third-party existing program. Add certificates within the Compliance Engine for real-time tracking of their certificates. And eliminate the use of our internal program. Initiate an enforcement program. Our goal is to increase compliance by at least 10%. We revise our hearing process, continue to develop a high-risk, non-compliant program to capture our highest liability properties on a simple risk matrix process, modify criminal case filings, and capture costs incurred to enforce compliance on nearly 80,000 systems. Increase our staffing of the Reg 4 unit with additional full-time Reg 4 inspectors to allow for orientations to be conducted and required prior to the testers taking the test. Introduce fitness testing where they actually go out and test those testers on the fitness or the manipulative testing part of the process. Because it's one individual right now, we need to increase that number. Introduce witness testing where the notification of the tests that are coming up are requested by the tester, and then we randomly make audits and go out and witness that testing that is occurring. And develop a continuing education process. Conduct the Compliance Engine System industry developing training on a quarterly basis. Conduct TCE administrative training to all independent testers. And develop a CE program for testers based on the number of systems tested and or the number of hours they've spent training. Our mid-range goal, or also known as Phase 2, is implement program to track and enforce alternative extinguishing systems that we do not currently track now, which would be hood systems where a large majority of our kitchen fires occur. Develop a bidirectional amplifier testing. BDA systems are currently installed in over 300 buildings, high-rise structures, and tunnels, which will be included in all future construction of similar type. Lastly, the long-term Phase 3, increase the frequency of wet system testing, introduce private fire hydrants, and explore additional certificates and requirements needed for testers. In conclusion, the Fire Prevention Bureau is seeking to restructure the Reg 4 program, which has not been reviewed or revamped since 1987. A new revenue stream created by a pass-through fee would support additional staff to ensure the consistent quality control measures, enforcement, and oversight desired by both the LFG and the industry as a whole. The revenue stream will also assist the cost recovery during the compliance enforcement process, as new legislation prohibits us from collecting investigative costs. Revenue generated by a pass-through would continue to increase over time with more systems identified, new properties, additional systems being tracked, along with the increase in testing frequency. This restructure could potentially reduce the fiscal impact on the certified testers the LFD relies on to gain compliance throughout our city. It will also foster the growth of the testing industry and increase compliance of the fire life safety protection systems for the citizens of Los Angeles. That concludes my report.
Thank you for
Any
the
questions?
report. So during the last few Board of Fire Commissioners meetings, we've had a lot of people who are very interested in this.
That is correct.
And who've been reaching out to us about including them as you do this. And I just want to make sure that that's taking place.
Absolutely.
Great. And then secondly, the other concern that we've heard a lot about is that whether we have the actual funding to do a good job with this. I'd like to know your thoughts about that.
So currently I would say, no, we do not. We solely rely on the revenue that's generated by the testers taking those tests at the $1,524 per system. That equals at about $400,000 last year to run our entire Reg 4 program for 80,000 systems. The idea of introducing a pass-through fee, we can reduce that certification cost and that initial impact to the testers, but then capture revenue on the actual number of systems that are being tested, which is more appropriate, and it puts the testers at an apple for apple when they're bidding on these projects versus we're kind of hurting the smaller folk that are involved as testers or testing agencies versus the bigger agencies that may have 100 or more testers. The cost differentiate between all of them, it just really doesn't make an equal playing field right now. And that's because of that large amount of impact that's required by them when they first take that test.
Right. So all of this insight you're taking into consideration while you revamp it, right? And
Absolutely.
discussing with all the relevant
That's correct.
individuals in the department.
These recommendations have not come easily. This has been about a year and a half worth of work of meeting with all of those involved and trying to get my hands around the fact that it's a lot more than just the LAFD. We rely and delegate our authority to the testers to do all the tests of the fire life safety protection systems throughout the entire city. So we need them just as bad as they need us. And so I understand that. So we get their involvement and have participated in many meetings, including LAUSD, who's a big player, General Services. I mean, we've got BOMA, who represents all the building owners and property managers. So these don't come lightly. This is with a lot of research and development of what this Reg 4 program needs to look like.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing it more as it develops.
Thank you.
Just quickly, what's the timeline on this project?
Well, my anticipation would be that the short-term goal would happen in the early part of next year, drafting that ordinance and getting that out. The long-term goal, that's probably going to be several years down the road.
Oh, okay.
So this is not going to come easy. I understand that too. It's like moving the aircraft carrier. So the first recommendation would be within the first short few months, and then 6 months, and then probably 2 years.
Okay, thanks.
Madam President,
Yes.
I have a few comments on this.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm in full support of this report. Almost 5 years ago when we implemented Brycer, we knew that there was many systems that were not being tested at all. And we're basically a victim of our own success, which we wanted to be, because more systems that get tested, the likelihood that if they're activated, they'll operate properly is enhanced. That means greater safety to the public, greater firefighter safety. In next year's proposed budget, that's the next budget item or next item on the agenda, we do have staffing allocated for Reg 4. It's a start. I know at the end of the day, we're going to need a completely staffed unit, but we are asking for an inspector 2 and a senior admin clerk to add to the current staffing, which I believe is an inspector 2.
That's Inspector 2, yes, sir.
Inspector 2. So we're on the path. This fee ordinance will allow us to also expand in the staffing area. And Cap, I compliment you on the thoroughness of your report.
Thank you.
Good job. I appreciate your effort.
Thank you, sir.
Very good report.
Thank you.
So it's obvious there's a lot of work that has been put into this and more to come. So
Yes, ma'am.
thank you for all of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank
We
you.
do have some public comments on this issue. The first one is Daniel Venencia from Los Angeles Fire Life Safety Committee. Sir, you'll have 2 minutes once you get to the podium.
Good morning, Fire Commission. I just wanted
morning.
to say thank you very much for all the support you guys have offered us. Thank you, Chief Crowley, for meeting with us about this Chief Regulation 4. And special thanks to Captain Chad Richardson. You could tell that he's really sat down, listened to us, realized that there is a need for change. Today I come here, I represent the Fire Life Safety Committee. There's 6 different Reg 4 companies that we meet once a quarter, and we talk about all the issues. We had the pleasure of having Captain Richardson at a few of those meetings, and he definitely took his notes and took his time, and we appreciate that. And then also, yeah, we're just here to support, hopefully that we could get a working group for this going, so to have all those stakeholders involved, talk about it. It is going to be a lot of work, but we're ready to work, so we're here to help and whatever you guys need. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Danny Stevens from Local 709. And sir, you'll have 2 minutes when you get to the podium.
I have a public comment at the end just in case.
Sure.
Good morning, Commissioners. First of all, I'd like to start off by saying that I want to recommend or commend the fire department. Everything that Captain Richardson has said for the past year and a half is in this report. We've worked very well together. Chief Fields, Chief Crowley, just top-notch, staying in contact with us. We do feel like we're partners in the process, and I think we have some input, and we appreciate that. One of the people that we use in these conversations is a consultant named Randy Roxon. So at this moment, I'd like to read a letter from him. He wasn't able to make it today. Excuse me. Dear Fire Commission President Ibarra, because I am unable to personally attend the above referenced meeting, please allow this correspondence to serve as my comments. I am a consultant to Sprinkler Fitters Local 709, the greater Los Angeles-based Fire Sprinkler Fitters Union. I'm also retired from the California Fire Service, serving over 30 years, most notably as Assistant Deputy Director, Chief of Operations, California State Fire Marshal's Office. That said, I am most impressed with the LAFD Regulation 4 program and with those who manage this comprehensive inspection, testing, and maintenance program. Having managed several statewide fire-related licensing programs during my previous career, I am familiar of what it takes to ensure that the program is successful and performs at the level of which it was designed. One key to an effective program is an adequate funding mechanism or funding source. Having participated in several meetings and studying the LAFD Reg 4 directive, I found that it lacks the appropriate funding mechanism that will ensure its effectiveness and purpose. The current funding level is completely inadequate to the effective operation of this program. That said, I believe that the department, in its report identified as BFC 19-125, has adequately demonstrated the path that must be taken for an effective Reg 4 program. I believe the suggested steps are, as outlined in the department's report, will ensure
Thank you.
that those who occupy building or structure in the city of Los Angeles are better protected in the event of a
Thank you.
catastrophic fire.
If you have more, you can
That was
use
it.
the.
I have a
yeah.
couple of comments at the end, but
Okay,
that was
great.
the end of the letter.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brian Shepard from Shambao and Son Fire Protection. Good morning.
Commission. I do represent Shambao and Son Fire Protection. We are one of the many testing companies that do these inspections here in the Los Angeles area. I need to say that it's been a breath of fresh air to be on our side of the fence and have a representative like Captain Richardson actually sit down at a table, level playing field, and actually listen to what we had to say. We don't run this. We're just a part of this. We understand that we work for Los Angeles Fire Department, and our entire goal is to do the best job that we can. The only way that we're going to get there together is by having somebody like this who's going to put together such a comprehensive report. We are in full support of this. All the methods that he's listed there, especially the recommendations, they all make sense. These are all going to be dominoes that are all going to fall forward in a progress motion here. So wanted to support the report. The research was very in-depth, very complete. It's worth our support 100% as a licensed contractor here in the state of California. Love to continue the partnership with Los Angeles Fire Department. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now, I think, yeah, that's it on this topic.
Okay. All right. Move to adopt the recommendation for item 5B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our next item is 5C, which is report by the department on the final proposed budget for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Emilio Rodriguez with the Administrative Services Bureau. Pleased to report back on the FY 2021 proposed budget from our meeting of October 1st. The department is presenting a final proposed budget of $775 million for next fiscal year, which is a year-over increase of $84 million from the current year, due in large part to the MOU increases, labor increases that kick in essentially this year over the next 3 years. The amount's large because it affects not only salaries account, but has a trickle-down effect onto the various overtime accounts. Given these budget demands, the department's requests are focused on the following priorities: funding for 3 new recruit training classes, including 2 classes for 130 recruits at the Valley Drill Tower, and 1 class in the Harbor Drill Tower for an additional 50 recruits. And this will help address a surge in drop retirements anticipated to occur by July 2020. Adding staffing resources for plan check support of Bridge Homes housing initiatives, Coupa program management, and fire alerting and safety, Reg 4 compliance, fire alerting and safety systems, which was just addressed. Enhancing brush fire support with supervisory staffing for the wildland field management program, providing brush clearance admin support, which includes an admin clerk that would assist in targeted local hiring initiatives. Continuation of sworn overtime for mutual aid deployments, which is reimbursable. Other major requests include field equipment priorities, technology requests, such as continuing a rotation on first responder helmets to meet NFPA standards, and continuing the replacement cycle on automated external defibrillators, funding for turnout protective gear replacements. We're still on the 5-year plan for that. And MICLA fleet replacement program to maintain the apparatus rotations for the triples, pumpers, and the various emergency sedans in the field. And technology funding to maintain broadband capabilities in the field. We're severely underfunded for that. There are a few changes from the October meeting after further consideration of department, mayor, and council priorities, which would include funding from the Capital Improvement Expenditure Program to upgrade Fire Station 39 for the Operations Valley Bureau facility. That's a total of $4.5 million from CIEP. And that would basically centralize command resources who are currently operating from different stations in the valley. Installation of extractors at fire stations, $250,000 to support extractor installation at 5 stations. Again, this would be the beginning of a 5-year, of a multi-year phase-in plan to address 5 stations annually, ultimately reaching all 106 fire stations. Within MICLA, we have a request for acquisition of an electric fire engine. That's going to be roughly $1.5 million to bring the department and the city at the forefront of sustainability initiatives. And the one item that is being removed is there was a battalion chief for the Tunnel Metro Rail project that's being deleted. I don't believe there was sufficient support for reimbursement of that. So collectively, the department's budget requests amount to $825 million, which includes both the operating budget and non-departmental components. Again, the MICLA, the UB, and the CIEP. Recommendations before you request that the board approve the list of proposed budget requests in its final form and authorize the department to prepare and transmit all necessary documents inclusive of any modifications as desired by commission members. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Just a question on the electric fire engine. Sounds cool, but have we actually tried that out?
I can answer that. They had the company that is developing the only working prototype is Rosenbauer, and they were in our city last Friday. They're on a nationwide tour with not only our country but Canada. We test drove it, I drove it, several of our people drove it, including our mechanics at the shops. It is a remarkable apparatus in terms of acceleration and braking and turning radius, and it's electric. It does have an onboard diesel generator. They're the only provider that we know of that is to this stage in development. So we are in negotiations with them right now. We're not the only one. Berlin and Amsterdam have already signed contracts for that apparatus. And pending our negotiation, we may be number 3.
Wow. So that's going to save us a lot of gas, right?
No fuel will be needed. No oil will be needed. It is 4-wheel drive. We're looking into developing infrastructure at one of our fire stations where it would be housed, and General Services is looking at that right now. I'm hoping that they can fund that. It's anticipated we may receive that about a year from now.
What's the range you can drive?
It'll go, it has the motor itself. When it gets down to 20% left of battery capacity, the generators kick in. So theoretically, the only limiting factor is the amount of diesel fuel in the generator. So it's hours, multiple hours.
So it's really a plug-in hybrid then.
Yes.
Got it. Which is great. It's a lot of money for a really new technology that we're asking for there. I feel like in many cases when a company is trying to demonstrate something like this, they actually let us try it for a while. Is there? I mean, look, long run this plug-in hybrids. I love my Chevy Volt, discontinued, but it works well. But also, it's on 3rd generation. What sort of assurances do we have that if we get it and it breaks down in 6 months, that I don't want to get stuck with $1 million paperweight?
Your concerns are very legitimate. What gives me confidence is that we've done business with this company, Rosenbauer. All 6 of our crash rigs at LAX are Rosenbauers. I've talked to our staff out there. They love that apparatus. I learned from their engineers on Friday that this vehicle has been in development for 6 years. We're not going to get a prototype. It's going to be a finished product. And we both have the understanding going into this agreement, if we do it, that there'll be some bugs and we'll work them out. I anticipate that future evolutions of this engine will continue to be refined and improved. But what I drove on Friday convinced me that we're on the right path.
How much more expensive is it than just a regular fire engine?
An extra $600,000. You can see the regular right above it.
Where is it? Oh.
That's correct. The final cost is still being tabulated. That is more expensive, but you have to remember, though, we're offsetting costs in terms of fuel savings and oil savings and repairs. There's less moving parts on an electric vehicle as compared to a regular fire truck.
They also have a longer expected lifespan, up to 15 years, versus diesel apparatus, which are 10 years.
Per
so
battery?
There's some savings generated there.
Is that
on the mechanism itself? But,
I asked that question. The batteries can be replaced, where the apparatus, the rest of it, doesn't have to be. So whenever the next evolution of battery becomes available, we would just swap it out. A battery costs $30,000.
Right. So, but this also meets with, the mayor's stated goal of, using new green technologies. So I think it's, kind of imperative that we try it out and see if it's going to work out.
I'm not sure if I agree with imperative, but I'm just saying I'm curious to know more about this. It's when you're bringing a brand new technology in like this and spending a lot of money on it, I would want to make sure that we had a extended warranty. I mean, if we're testing out theirs and giving them the publicity of running their engine in the United States, this is a pretty big opportunity for them as well. I would just hope that in the negotiations, if you're going to go down this route, that we have significant assurances. New technology breaks, and if it's a plug-in hybrid, depending on how we run it, right? It's possible that the range is there, but it's also possible that you're going to end up using the generator all the time because they don't have sufficient time to charge it. So don't overstate the savings on it. Make sure we get a good deal on it. Like I said, I would feel better if they were letting us try it out for 6 months, then we could decide if we wanted it. But jumping in and buying it without a try before we buy, it feels risky to me. I'm not going to, we don't have time for us to sit here and Fleet Services is in here to talk about it, but that's anyway. Those are my concerns.
Let me respond to that. Your concerns are legitimate. I'm very cautious as well. What gives me confidence is we've done work with this company before. The engineers from the company know that there's going to be some issues. There always are, no matter if it's electric or not, with new apparatus. And we plan on working together to identify issues and improve them. So my caution is kind of counterbalanced by the history with that company and the knowledge that we're going to have to work together to refine it to get it to the point that we're comfortable. But I also think at some point we got to jump off. I don't want to keep resisting. This seems to be the best prospect out there. So we'll see where this takes us. If we don't have confidence in the warranty and all that, then we're not gonna come to an agreement.
Okay. Right. Anybody else?
Yes, just really quickly, and this is great, and I'm glad that we're asking for an appropriate amount of money, and we're adding in another class. I am a little bit apprehensive, just want the record to reflect. I'm apprehensive about adding. We cannot stop hiring, but I'm concerned about the failure rate of members out of the drill tower and the price of that. And so I just want to say I'm apprehensive about that, and I think that next week's meeting will be really important, that we get the opportunity to look at that. I know that we have quorum, so I think that it's great, but I am a little bit apprehensive because the numbers are increasing.
Right. Understood.
All right. So any further comments? No?
Okay. Move to adopt the recommendation on item 5C.
Second.
Oh, actually, no, we don't have comments here. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So now we have 2 public comments. Our first one is Mr. Danny Stevens from Local 709.
Thank you. Actually, I think we got it all in, so
Great.
I'll just yield back my time since I went over it
Thank you.
before.
Thank you.
So we have Mr. Brian Shepard from Shambao Sun and Fire Protection, if you're still here. No? Great. Okay.
All right. Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.